It's way more than that. We're actually pressing buttons that trigger the Shechina to dwell in this world.
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rebbe Saf Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom Uvracha. In this week's Parshas Vayikra, as we start the new Sefer Vayikra, we know that the Torah talks about the different types of sacrifices. However, it's very interesting to note that the beginning of the Parsha first discusses the set of sacrifices that are voluntary, such as Nedavas Oila, Shlamim, etc. And the question screams out, why is that the first set of sacrifices that are being spoken about? It would reason and makes a lot more sense to first say these are the sacrifices you have to do. If you sinned, you have to bring a korban chatas. If you're not sure if you sinned, but there's a chance you did, you have to bring a korban asham. Why is that not the order? First, this is what you have to do. And secondly, this is, you don't have to, but it's voluntary. That's question number one. Question number two, why is it that when we sacrifice something to Hashem, perhaps it should be something spiritual, why is it the most extreme idea of materialism? We know animals, the behemoths, they represent extreme gashmis. Why are we sacrificing such a thing to Hashem? Would it not make more sense to sacrifice something that represents more the idea of spirituality? To answer the above questions, first, we have to go back to the drawing boards and understand, what is the tachlis of a yid? What is our purpose in life? The Jewish nation, the Jewish people. Chazal tell us, and it's brought down in Midrash Tanchuma in Parshas Vayikra, that our job in this world is to bestow upon earth the tachtoinim, the Shechina, the kedusha that will come down. As Chazal tell us, it's brought down in the Tanchuma, Venatati mishkani betochechem. I will dwell within each one of you. And how does that happen? If we trigger that by doing mitzvahs. If we do mitzvahs in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will leave the heavens and come down also to be with us down here. And of course, everyone will benefit. Not only Jews, but also the Gentiles. Of course, we know the opposite is also true. When the person sins, it chas v'shalom removes the kedusha from earth, the Shechina. It removes the Shechina. As Chazal taught us, that when Adam HaRishon sinned, the Shechina went away, and it came back down when the Mishkan was created. As it says, and the cloud covered all Moed, and the glory of Hashem filled the Mishkan. Of course, it's not only the idea of building Mishkan, but it's all the mitzvahs that we do. All of these are, so to speak, funnels we create that the Shechina comes down to this world. A korban represents this idea exactly. Hence, the word korban in Lashon HaKodesh comes from the word getting closer. We get closer to Hashem. Hashem brings down the Shechina down here, and we uplift the whole world to be more spiritual, more with Kedusha. And that also has the ripple effect of creating more Achdus in Klal Yisrael, because we know that common denominator between all of us is our neshama. The Maharal speaks about this idea in depth, that the korban implies exactly that. That's why it comes from the word getting closer, kirva, karov. And hence, it makes a lot of sense that what we're sacrificing is something that represents extreme materialism, gashmias. Because just like when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down to this world, which is this world, not the world to come, this world is all gashmias, it's all materialistic. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down spirituality to here, so too, we're trying to do the same thing. We're taking something that represents materialistic and a materialistic idea, the behema, the animals, and we're uplifting it to give it as a present to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Based on these ideas, we understand very well why the effect in svara, in logic, will actually be way more if we do it in a voluntary fashion. Because once you're forced to do something, that creates less of a closeness when you give a present to someone. But when you give something that you don't need to give, and it's coming deep from your heart because you want to do it, that creates more of a bond. Hence, that's going to create more kedusha. And that's why this hints to us what the idea of sacrifice is all about, to get close to Hashem, to get close to someone. You give them a present that you're not required to do. You voluntarily want to give it, and that creates more of a bond, more of a closeness, and perhaps even more Shechina to dwell in our world. Of course, as we mentioned, Even when you bring mandatory sacrifices, it does the same effect. As the korban implies, kirva creates the closeness, the Shechina comes down. But it makes way more of an effect when it's voluntary and it's not mandatory. Once we understand this concept, perhaps this idea is hinted in another way in our parsha. As we know, it says, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban Hashem, which literally translates to a person, if he will sacrifice from you, i.e. from Klal Yisrael, a sacrifice, etc., etc. But the Mefarshim point out, it would have made more sense, grammatically speaking, to write it, Adam mikem, if a person out of you will sacrifice. Adam mikem ki yakriv. Why is the order switched? Grammatically, it sounds almost not 100% accurate. Why does it write it in a way, Adam ki yakriv mikem, a person that will sacrifice from you? The answer is, it's trying to scream out this concept that we're saying. Ki yakriv mikem. We're sacrificing from ourselves. The sacrifice is coming from ourselves. We're taking something that's important to us, that's physical, gashmias, the behema, that we can have a good geshmak steak from it, and we're giving it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we're screaming out the idea, we want to get closer to Hashem and bring the Shechina down. Even though, unfortunately, b'avonoseinu harabim, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash today, b'mheira b'yameinu, it will be rebuilt. But we can take this idea of getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bringing the Shechina down by performing other mitzvahs and taking the same concept we spoke about last week, taking things that represent gashmias, physical ideas in this world, and elevate them in Kedusha to do Ratzon Hashem with these things, whether it's an act of chesed or whether it's performing any type of mitzvahs. That in itself will trigger more Kedusha in this world and ensure that we are able to get closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu in this world. Yeh Ratzon, that will be, now that we're going into the Sedra of sacrifices, we'll use this important time to see how we can get closer to Hashem by performing all these mitzvahs and realize that what we are doing is not just a regular mitzvah. It's way more than that. We're actually pressing buttons that trigger the Shechina to dwell in this world. I remember I used to go to a set of shiurim by Rav Boyer Shlita, and he asked all of us, tell me, what do you think is going to be the biggest thing that's going to be revealed to you when you get to Olam Haba? And everyone gave different types of answers. But he said, I want to suggest, the biggest thing that you're suddenly going to be amazed when you see is, wow, I cannot believe what effect I had with every mitzvah I did. If it would just be tangible when I was in the world, I would have done so much more. Yeh Ratzon, that will make it tangible as much as we can in our minds and realize that we, Klal Yisrael, have the ability to bring more Kedusha in this world and make the world a better place. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of The Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on The Prism of Torah.